guys, it's Olivie Blake, and this is me not writing. So I would love for my dog to be in the video today, but he does not want to be here, and he cannot be told what to do. That is something that we have in common. It's terrible. Anyway, so this is a spiked strawberry rose agua fresca. I have put the recipe on Instagram if you would like to make it. Essentially, it's just strawberries, mint, lime, a little bit of rose water, some club soda, and tequila. It's pretty good. If I were to characterize it as something that already exists or that you've already had, a strawberry mojito, probably. So you could spike it then with rum or gin, but I had tequila. Also, my straps keep falling off my shoulders, so apologies that, like, at some points I'm probably going to look like I'm in some sort of medieval romance novel. Okay, so first of all, we have to talk about the fact that the tour has now started. Tour de France. It's very hard to pronounce this, like, you know, it's one of those words where you just want to, like, skim over the actual pronunciation because you sound like an asshole. I have a friend in my boxing class who is from Barcelona, and when he said, "I'm from Barcelona," I was like, "Oh, you're not from Barcelona?" And he was like, "You know, I used to say it like that, and then I was informed it made me sound like a douchebag." And I was like, "Oh, sad." So anyway, the tour has started. Obviously, this is very exciting for me. As I've mentioned a number of times, Mr. Blake is a cyclist. But what's very interesting about the tour is Mr. Blake's discipline is not road cycling, which is what the tour is. He rides cyclocross and mountain biking. That's something he's more getting into. But anyway, there's a big difference between road and cyclocross because cyclocross is on terrain, basically. So it's in like parks and on dirt and through hills and whatever, and not on actual roads. And road is going from point A to point B for a really long time. Cyclocross is going in a loop, like a 1 to 2 mile loop, as many times as possible in an hour. So they're very different kinds of cycling, but road cyclists make a lot more money, you know, because the tour actually gets a lot more publicity. So there are a couple of cyclocross champions who are currently riding in the tour. And it's been an exciting couple of days because typically cyclocross riders kind of disappear. There's a bunch of different kinds. You can find this information. I've written up primers on the tour before, so I'll link you to them. But basically, there's general classification riders who are good at hills and long rides and sprints. They're kind of like pretty good at everything. And that's who usually wins the yellow jersey of the tour. Then there's other jerseys. There's the green jersey for the sprints. That's the points classification. There's the polka dot jersey for climbs. But primarily, people focus on the GC riders, general classification. Cyclocross riders are not usually GC riders. They're usually more like sprinters because typically in their discipline, they specialize in going all out for an hour. So that's more of a sprint than a climber. So the guy who won day one, Mike, I'll put it in the little letters. So he's Dutch. He rides for a Dutch team, and he is a former cyclocross champion. I believe, I forget what year, 2013 maybe, a while ago. He won the under 23, which is a pretty big deal, and he's still weirdly listed as a cyclocross rider even though he's been riding road for a while. And technically the only reason he was allowed to win, because each team has a team leader, so the team leader is the one that everybody else works to help. So Mike was the lead out for Dylan, and I can't pronounce his last name either. I can't actually remember what it is. It sounds like Rutabaga to me, so I'm just going to call him that. Dylan Rutabaga is the team lead. But Dylan got caught in a crash, which meant that Mike was eligible to win a stage, so he did. He just narrowly beat Peter Sagan. And then today, for the team time trials, the yellow team Lotto won, which is the team that Wout van Aert is on, who is also Dutch? Or is he Belgian? He's Dutch or Belgian. And so, yeah, he is also a cyclocross World Cup champion. So that's exciting news. Mr. Blake is very amped about this, in case you wanted something to connect you to this random sporting event. But someone sent me an amazing ask that said, "You have no idea how bad it is being French in July when you have next to no understanding of cycling and it's all there is on TV. My boyfriend is torn between being glad that I'm watching with him and wondering what's gotten into me, and that's on you, Olivie." Tragically, some of my favorites are out this year. Chris Froome is out. He got like battered. You'd have to look up what happened to him, but he essentially broke like his entire left side. Marcel Kittel is out. He had a terrible year. He might have to retire. He didn't do very well. John Degenkolb is out. He's one of my favorite sprinters. He doesn't typically do that well, but I love him. Geraint Thomas, who was last year's winner, got injured, so like the whole tour is a toss-up right now, which is kind of exciting. This is super good, you guys. And I did mention, so you don't have to spike it with alcohol. You can just drink it, and it's very refreshing. But, it's Olivie, can you please recommend some things to see and do in LA? I will be visiting soon and would love some great places to explore. Also, what is the best or safest way to get around the city as a solo female traveler? Usually I love walking to explore new cities. All right, I talked about this a couple weeks ago. There is no safe way to travel alone as a woman, definitely not at night. I get why you would want to walk around, obviously. That is the best way to get to know a city. But alone, there are definitely some apps that could help you. I mean, you may be from another country, I'm not totally sure, so I don't know if you're gonna have working data. But there are definitely a lot of safety apps. There's one that I used to use when I was in college that's like, basically you put your thumb on the screen of your phone, and if your thumb ever flies off it for more than, I think, 10 seconds or something, it automatically calls 911. So that is very useful. There's a lot more like it. I will also put links to those in here. I cannot understate that there is not a safe way to travel as a woman at night. And I talked about that at length a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not really going to talk about it now. Be out during the day, be out in large public places, make sure there are people who know where you are. I don't know. It's scary being a woman. As for LA, the thing about LA is that it's not a super walkable city. It depends where you are going to be staying. So LA is what's called a polycentric city. I studied urban planning in LA, so we're using the technical term. It is a polycentric city. It has public transportation, but it's not a super easy system. It can be a little bit difficult. There are some easier trains. For example, the Expo line goes from downtown directly to the ocean. Very useful, but that is also about an hour-long journey. It really depends where you're staying in LA, is what I'm saying. I think if you've never been here before, you're probably going to want to see the Santa Monica Pier and the Venice Boardwalk, so you might want to stay somewhere in Santa Monica or Venice. They're beach cities, so they have a little bit more of a local feel, sort of a small town feel, and then you can go downtown via the train. Other places you might want to go, LA is an amazing fashion city, and a lot of that is the vintage shops. I really enjoy spending time on Melrose. That can be a full day because there's lots of like good food in that area too. It's like near Hollywood. I don't typically think that Hollywood proper is not an amazing place. West Hollywood can be really fun and cool. There are definitely places in Hollywood, but like Hollywood Boulevard is just kind of a tourist trap. It's gross, it's dirty, it's, yeah, you can see the stars and stuff, but you can pass. So like I said, mid-city like Melrose, mid-Wilshire, which is where the museums are, LACMA, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the La Brea Tar Pits are right there, the Grove is right there. The fun thing about LA is that all the shopping centers are outdoors, basically, except for the Beverly Center, skip the Beverly Center. And a lot of the good food is in those areas as well. So basically, if you're going to go to LA, I would suggest renting a car. It's just one of those places you need a car to get around. I'd have to know a little bit more, I think, about what you wanted to do, because you could have very different trips to LA. There's like the family trip where you go to Universal Studios and you go to Disneyland and, you know, you hang out on the pier or whatever. And then there's like the culture trip, like I said, where you'd want to be on Wilshire near the museums and near the vintage shops. And then there's a lot of places I don't know a lot about because they're hard to get to. This is the thing about LA, is that once there's so much traffic, there's so many people who live here. The weather's pretty nice. There's a lot of good reasons to live here. Getting from place to place at a great distance it's kind of like once you've arrived at your destination, you should probably stay there all day. Like if I were going to Pasadena, which Old Town Pasadena, very cute. Also, Pasadena's City Hall is the City Hall that was in Parks and Recreation. Fun fact. And then there's a lot of stuff that's in the vicinity of LA. Like Santa Barbara has this amazing there's a bunch of wine tasting rooms, and you just basically walk from one to another. But if you're gonna do that, you should probably get a hotel in Santa Barbara, because you don't walk away from a wine tour in Santa Barbara. You need to lie down. So there's a lot of stuff you could do. I'd have to know more details, but yeah, I really like LA. I think there's a lot of songs about, entertainers and artists who are trying to make it, and so they're like, LA is full of fakes and whatever. And yeah, sure, maybe. I think LA is full of dreamers. If they happen to be a little fake, it's for the sake of the dream. Okay. So these are pretty quick. I'm curious to know if you have a favorite trope or relationship dynamic that you favor, either writing it or reading it. Trope or character personalities you tend to enjoy. Essentially, what are some of your favorite ships outside of Harry Potter, and why? Well, I really like the prince. Not like the rich, handsome person, but like Dmitri Fedorov in One for My Enemy, which is a book I wrote. But anyway, I like the personality type of the character who has so much responsibility, or they are, loyal almost to a fault. They're just completely blind except for the thing that they've been raised to do. The heir, basically. I love any storyline that involves someone who's just like, I have all this responsibility and I've worked my whole life to carry this responsibility out. And holy shit, I just met someone that turned all of that upside down for me. That is my favorite. I love that. So sometimes that happens to be a literal prince, and sometimes that happens to be just someone of that personality type. That, type A, blinders on, I'm going to get where I'm going no matter what, and then something gets thrown in their way. That's one of my favorites. I like forbidden love, obviously. I write a lot of it. I don't know, I like weird family dynamics too. It's hard for me to think of tropes because I think someone asked me recently what romance novel tropes I like or dislike, and the thing is that I don't really dislike anything, because I think that anything can be executed well, just like anything can be executed poorly. So I've read some bad enemies to lovers, just like I've read some amazing ones. I think it just really depends on how it's presented, how human the characters are too. So I'm not answering this question at all. What ships do I like? Quentin and Elliot from The Magicians. God, I love them so much. Usually if there's just like a disaster of a character, like Quentin, I love them. I love them. The messier they are in terms of their emotions, it's just that's ideal. I think this would be easier. I mean, I do love the street rat princess. I don't know why Aladdin and Jasmine came to mind, but that sort of thing does appeal to me. I do really enjoy. I really enjoy just two opposites coming together. I love rivals. I love a rivalry. You know why? Because I really like equals. I really like people who come together because they are each other's equal. That appeals to me so much. Like in The Princess Diaries 2, which is a fantastic film. I already said Dimitri, but Dima and Masha from One for My Enemy, that is my catnip. It's two equals coming together, and at first butting heads, but then realizing, maybe we should do this together. You know what movie I love that is currently streaming on HBO? Mr. Right. I don't know if I've talked about this film before. Other people don't like it. It's very absurd. You kind of have to dismiss things in much the same way as you have to dismiss things when you're reading my stuff. That there is a certain level of absurdity. It is a little strange. But basically this film is about a professional hitman who's extremely talented at his job, but rather than killing the people that he is assigned to kill, he kills the people who hire him because killing is wrong. And then he meets this woman, Martha, who is Anna Kendrick, who's incredibly strange, and he's also incredibly strange, but for whatever reason, they're both very proficient with weapons. This is the sort of thing that I just love. I love two weirdos. I just love it. I love what are the chances these two people were gonna meet? And now that they've met, they can't unmeet. This is just what it is now. I don't know, that sense of kismet, I guess. That it's like, oh no, these two volatile forces have come together, and now it's a power couple, but not in the traditional sense of power couple. It's a power couple in that now these people are going to accomplish so much more because they've met each other. I'm like so romantic about the idea of romance. I can be sold on almost any romance is a thing. I really love relationships. I think I don't know. I recently read, this drink is very good. Anyway, what was I saying? I recently read A Week to Be Wicked, which was fantastic. It was a little nerdy little geologist girl and a handsome disaster of a rake. They were extremely fun. I never like a rescue, is the thing. I never like a character who needs to be saved. I think that's why that doesn't really happen in my stories very much. I like two people who meet and they're like, oh my god, let's do something stupid together. Usually that stupid thing ends up being like, you know, like worth doing. There's like a reason to do that dumb thing, but it's like from the outskirts, you're like, hey, you two are doing something dumb. And they're like, no, but we're gonna do it though. We're gonna do it, and once we've done it, it's not dumb anymore. I love it. Is there anything you haven't tried yet that you want to try so you can have a better understanding or feel of it when you write it? Within our world, because I would definitely say things like flying and casting spells and hanging out with immortals. Yeah, I'd want to do all that. So, this is a relevant question. A relevant question, because I started boxing so that I could write fight scenes better. So there's a lot of like physical stuff that I would like to do so that I could describe them better. I would like to be better at a lot of martial arts. I would really like to know how to sword fight. It's hard to come by. I would like to. This is going to be very troubling. No one showed this at my criminal trial, but I would be very interested in stabbing someone. Only for research. No, but for real, I would like to know how to use more things. A lot of the stuff that I want to do is pretty physical. I would want to know, like I said, how to sword fight. I have shot a gun before. A lot of the stuff that I've already done has been in the interest of just like, how do I describe this experience? So I've shot a rifle. I told my brother-in-law that he has to take me hunting, not so that I can actually hunt something, but so that I can understand what exactly is the adrenaline rush here? Like, what is the thrill of this? And more importantly, what is the skill in this? These are things that I need to know. Also, he's going to do it whether I'm there or not, so like, I might as well observe. He goes for like turkeys, which, why? Let's see, what else? So one time I told Mr. Blake that I wanted to write a scene. So I've got a character in the Atlas 6 who, it doesn't really come into play this book so much, but in the next book, his thing is that he can travel through the dream realms. So there's a lot of stuff he can do in the dream realms that does not, obviously wouldn't feel like anything on Earth. So I told Mr. Blake that I wanted to get very high, and we did, and I did not like it. I did not like it. The thing is that I'm very nervous about my brain, so I don't do any like serious drugs. I have a lot of curiosities about how drugs work or how they would feel, but I absolutely do not. Coming from someone who has already, I have a mental disorder, so when I mess with my brain, it's usually not a good thing. And I've been on so many medications that have altered my state of mind that I don't trust things that do that. So I think we took just like too many edibles just to like see what would happen. It was terrible. It was like I was carrying around the weight of my existential dread, which is legal here. Not the existential dread is always legal for whatever reason, but the edibles were legal. But I did not like it. He was having the greatest time. I was feeling all of my emotions at once. I like couldn't laugh without crying. It was a whole thing. I want to mimic the out-of-body experience, however, I'm not willing to do it in a way that might damage my brain. I think there's some things you can't really know what anything is like until you try it. You don't really know what it feels like, what the adrenaline feels like, what it smells like in the air, like all this stuff that you can't necessarily write without being present for. Which is why sometimes people ask me about how I research for Ride or Die, and the truth is I really didn't research all that well. I don't necessarily think that Ride or Die is an exercise in expertise, because at the time I really didn't know anything about medical procedure, and if I had been writing it for a book, or if I'd had the time to do it, I would have volunteered in a hospital so that I actually understood what a doctor's day felt like, or, you know, I only know these things from cursory research and like watching TV or knowing things about pop culture. But I definitely would not say that like there's really a lot of skill in what's currently there. If I wanted to improve it, I would follow someone around for like a month to see what their day-to-day was like. Because I don't know, when you're writing an experience, I just really feel like, I say this a lot, it's not necessarily write what you know, but it definitely is know what you write. So I try to only locate my stories in places that I have actually been, only because otherwise you get things wrong. I hate to, for example, not know what time the sun goes down in certain places, because then it's just, not knowing little things like that makes the whole story feel a little bit less real. Yeah, this was not a thorough answer at all. Just not even at all. So when I shot the rifle, for example, which I shot at a Coke can, and also with my brother-in-law, after I shot, there was this really strange sensation of the entire world went silent right as I pulled the trigger. And there's no way to describe it. There's no research I could have done to tell me that. But after I had done it, and I was telling my brother-in-law, and he described the exact same sensation, and I was like, see, this sort of thing, this is something I need to understand about what I'm doing, because there's just no other way to put that into words except to experience it, to feel the way that everything just stops, and it just goes absolutely quiet. Your whole, like, you feel very conscious of, like, the blood in your veins. And I'm not even, like, I don't want to shoot things. I was shooting a Coke can, but it still was definitely a thing that happened, and it made things feel more real. Just like boxing, taking a punch to the ribs, that is not really something you understand until it's happened to you. Taking a punch to the sternum is not something you can write about until you've been punched in the sternum. So yeah, I don't even know that I would know how to name what else I want to know. There's so many experiences that I want to have. Hanging out with immortals is definitely one of them. Demonic possession. Just kidding. No, please no. Okay, well, that's all for today. I think I've finally gotten through my queue of random questions. I've been currently very busy with Awe of the Night approaching. I spent almost all of last week on it, actually, so pretty excited. Also, if you have ever, if you read the Neapolitan novels, keep an eye out for things that are happening soon. That was vague, but I don't want to explain myself. That's all. All right, well, this has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing, and I'll see you next week.